The wind howled over the jagged cliffs that bordered the kingdom of Dravenmore. Dark clouds hung low, hiding the sun, and the forests below whispered secrets only the brave dared hear. In the center of the kingdom, the castle rose like a scar. Upon the land, its towers blackened by fire and its walls lined with the scars of battle. Yet inside, a quieter, more desperate storm raged. King Cale, the Alpha King of Dravenmore, staggered through the gates, clutching a small bundle in his arms. His armor was dented, his cloak torn, and streaks of blood ran down his face. He was a man who had conquered lands and broken armies, yet now he looked smaller than a child under the weight of his own fear. The bundle in his arms moved weakly. The infant heir to the throne, the last hope for the bloodline of Dravenmore, coughed faintly, and Kyle's heart clenched. He had always been strong. He had never begged. But now, trembling with exhaustion and dread, he had no choice. He stumbled into the forest that bordered the kingdom. The villagers whispered of a woman who lived among the trees, a healer with strange powers, a woman no king had ever dared approach. Her name was Ceres, and rumors said she could make life blossom from death itself. Kyle reached her small cabin, a modest structure hidden beneath twisted oaks and climbing ivy. He pounded on the door, ignoring the howl of the wind. "Ceres," he called, his voice rough and raw. "I need your help. My child. He is sick." For a long moment, silence answered him. Then the door creaked open, and a tall woman with sharp eyes and dark hair stepped out. She looked at him not with fear, but with calm judgment. "I do not take visitors," she said. Her voice was quiet, yet it carried authority that rivaled any king's command. "And I do not serve those who bring death to my forest." Cale dropped to his knees, holding out the infant. Blood and soot marked his hands. "He is not an army. He is not a weapon. He is my son. Please, he is weak. He will die without your help." Ceres studied him for a long moment. She had heard of Cale, the fearsome Alpha King, the conqueror of many realms. She had never expected to see him on his knees, broken, begging. Reluctantly, she stepped aside, letting him pass. "Bring him inside," she said. "I will do what I can. But understand this, you owe more than a life for his survival." Kyle followed her, cradling the child as if the slightest wrong movement would shatter him. Inside, the cabin smelled of herbs and warm firelight. Ceres moved with careful precision, arranging soft blankets and boiling water. She examined the infant with quiet efficiency. "He is weak because he has not had enough nourishment," she said. "A child like this, he needs milk. He may not survive the night without it." Kyle's eyes widened. "Milk? You mean?" Ceres did not answer immediately. She glanced at him, her gaze piercing. "You will have to let him nurse," she said slowly. "He needs your bloodline, your warmth, and mine." Kyle stiffened. His pride flared, a fire he had always used to conquer armies. Yet he saw the truth in her eyes. He could not protect the child alone. Not tonight. Ceres handed the infant to him. "I will guide you," she said. "But you must trust me." Cale did as she instructed, holding the child against her, following her careful directions. It was an intimate, delicate act, and Cale felt a strange humility take root in his chest. He was a king, feared by many, yet here he was powerless. He had never known fear like this, not in battle, not in war. This fear was raw and tender, rooted in love. Hours passed. The wind outside raged against the cabin, but inside, Ceres worked with careful patience. She prepared herbs to soothe the child and whispered gentle chants, her magic subtle but powerful. Kyle watched her, his admiration growing with every movement. She was not a warrior, yet she carried a strength he had never seen before, quiet, unyielding, and alive. As the night deepened, Cale spoke, his voice soft and hesitant. "Why? Why do you help me? I am no friend to the forest. I have taken what I wanted, burned what I pleased. Saris looked at him steadily. "You are a king," she said, "and kings make many mistakes. But a king who will kneel to save his child, that is something rare. That is worth saving." Her words struck him like a blow and a balm at the same time. He had always believed strength came from fear, from domination, from being untouchable. Yet here was a woman whose strength made his own pale in comparison, and whose care might save the only thing he truly loved. The infant stirred weakly, and Cale's hands shook as he adjusted him. Saris's gaze softened slightly, and for a moment the barriers between them fell away. The Alpha King, once untouchable, was nothing more than a father desperate to protect his child, and Saris, usually distant and wary, felt a pull toward the man who carried such raw vulnerability. "You will need to feed him through the night," Saris said, "and he will need warmth. You must stay by his side." Kyle nodded. "I will not leave him," he whispered. "Not for a moment." Hours bled into one another. The cabin glowed with firelight, the sound of the storm outside fading into a distant memory. Cale watched Saris tend to the child, learning the subtleties of her care. He noticed the way her fingers moved with precision, the quiet power in her voice, the steady confidence that seemed to defy the chaos of the world outside. And slowly, the walls he had built around his heart began to crumble. He had known command, conquest, and fear, but he had never known something like this. A bond forged not by blood or battle, but by trust, by life itself. As dawn approached, the child's breathing stabilized, and a weak, peaceful smile touched his lips. Kyle exhaled a breath he had not realized he had been holding, relief flooding him like a wave. Saris stepped back, her eyes still sharp, yet now tinged with respect. "He will survive the night," she said. "But there are greater dangers ahead. The bloodline is cursed, the child is a target, and the curse will not rest until it is broken." Cale's chest tightened. He had known of the curse, whispered in old songs and feared in every shadow of his kingdom. He had fought battles, killed men and burned cities, but this curse tied to his bloodline was a force beyond any sword. "Then we face it together," he said, his voice low but firm. "I cannot protect him alone. I need you. Saris." Her eyes widened slightly at the admission. She had expected pride, fear, and anger from him, but not this. Not a plea, bare and unguarded. "I do not belong in your castle," she said. "I am no queen. I am no mate to a king. I am a healer. That is my path." Kyle looked at her, his usual fire tempered by desperation and longing. "Perhaps you will choose your own path, but I ask only this. Stay tonight. Protect him. Protect me from my own weakness." Saris's hands tightened around the child, and for a moment, silence filled the room. Then she nodded, quietly, almost reluctantly. "Tonight I will stay." Outside, the storm began to fade, but a new shadow loomed on the horizon, an emissary from a rival kingdom riding hard through the mist, seeking the infant heir. Cale did not know it yet, but danger was coming faster than any sword he had faced before, and as the first light of dawn touched the cabin, Saris held the child close, Cale at her side, and both knew their lives were forever changed. The Alpha King, once proud and untouchable, had begged, and the healer, once distant and untouchable, had accepted the weight of their future. The story of trust, of power, of love and fear was only beginning. Cliffhanger ending of Part 1. A distant horn echoed through the forest. Saris stiffened, her eyes widening in alarm. Through the mist, she saw the shadow of riders approaching fast, their intent unmistakable. She clutched the infant tighter. Cale's hand went to his sword, but even he knew this fight was not one they could face alone. He looked at Saris, voice low but steady. "We fight together, or he dies." The wind carried a chilling promise. The night was over, but the storm of destiny had only just begun. The morning mist clung to the forest like a shroud, hiding the approaching danger from the cabin where Cale and Saris had spent the night. The infant heir slept in Saris's arms, his tiny chest rising and falling with each careful breath, But peace was fragile. The horn that had sounded in the distance was no mere warning. It carried the intent of enemies, of forces that would stop at nothing to claim the child and the kingdom. Kyle tightened his grip on his sword, his eyes scanning the trees beyond the clearing. He had faced armies, dragons, and betrayal alike, yet the vulnerability he felt now was sharper than any blade. He looked at Ceres, who stood calm and steady, her dark eyes filled with a quiet determination that rivaled his own. "We must move," Kale said softly. "The child cannot be left here. They will come, and soon." Ceres nodded, her gaze lingering on the infant. "We will leave the path open for them to follow, but they will not take him. Not if I can help it." Kale's pride flared for a moment, mixed with awe. He had commanded legions, yet this woman, who had never fought in armies, exuded a power that seemed unstoppable. And more than that, she held his heart in a way no battle ever could. Together they moved through the forest, Ceres carrying the infant while Kyle guarded their path. The shadows of trees became their allies, the mist their shield. The first of the riders appeared, a group of armored men, faces hidden behind dark helmets, their spears sharp and deadly. Kyle stepped forward, his sword gleaming even in the dim light. "Stay behind me," he said to Ceres. She shook her head. "No, we face this together." Kale's eyes softened. She was not only a healer, she was a partner, strong and unyielding, and in that moment he realized the truth he had denied himself. She was not merely protecting his child. She was the mate he had been searching for, the one his soul had begged for in silence. The first clash was sudden. Kale's sword sang as it cut through the ranks of the attackers, his movements precise and deadly, yet even his skill was tested by their numbers. Ceres stood beside him, her hands glowing faintly as magic, subtle but potent, surged outward to knock back those who came too close. The forest itself seemed to respond to her presence, roots twisting under the feet of the intruders, branches lashing like whips. Through the chaos, Kale caught glimpses of her, her movements fluid and fearless. He realized that her strength was not just magic, it was courage, will, and heart. He fought harder, inspired by her, and for the first time, he was not fighting only to protect his kingdom or his bloodline, but to protect the woman who had captured his soul. When the last rider fell, the forest grew silent once more. Both Kale and Ceres were breathing heavily, their clothes torn and faces streaked with sweat and dirt. But the child was safe, cradled securely in Ceres's arms. Kale stepped closer to her, his hand brushing hers. "You were incredible," he said, voice rough with emotion. I did not know anyone could face such danger and stand so strong." Ceres's eyes softened, yet she kept the infant between them. "Strength is not just in swords and battles," she said. "It is in protecting life, in caring when it would be easier to leave. That is why he lives, Kale." He looked at her, seeing her in a new light. More than a healer, more than a woman of magic. She was his equal, his companion, the force that could tame even the chaos of his own heart. And in that moment, Kale made a silent vow. He would never let her leave, never let the world take her from him or their child. Yet the victory was short-lived. The whispers of the curse that had haunted Kale's bloodline returned with a chilling clarity. Ceres felt it too, the subtle shift in the forest, the quiet tremor beneath their feet. A shadow, older and darker than the enemy they had just faced, rose from the heart of the woods. "The curse," Ceres whispered, eyes narrowing. "It is here. It tests us, and it will not stop until it is satisfied." Kale's grip on his sword tightened. "Then we face it," he said. "Together. Whatever comes, we will not let it take him. Or us." The forest around them seemed to darken, the sunlight fading as if swallowed by the shadows themselves. Kyle and Ceres moved forward, their bond deepening with every step. The child stirred in her arms, and Kale's heart swelled with a mix of fear and love. He had never known a vulnerability like this, yet he felt stronger than ever, anchored not by pride or power, but by trust and devotion. They reached an ancient grove, where the trees formed a circle as if guarding a sacred altar. Ceres set the child down gently on a bed of moss, and she and Kale stood together, ready for whatever the curse would send. A figure emerged from the shadows, a tall, hooded being, its presence chilling yet mesmerizing. It spoke in a voice that seemed to echo from the depths of the forest itself. "The heir must fall," the figure said, "or your line will end, Alpha King. Nothing you cherish will survive." Kyle stepped forward, defiance blazing in his eyes. "You will not touch him. Not while I live. The figure laughed, a sound like cracking ice. It is not your life that matters, but the choice of the mate. Only when the bond is true, only when the heart is willing, can the curse be broken. Cerys understood immediately. The curse had tested kings and warriors before, but it required something different now. It demanded trust, devotion, and love born from choice, not fear. Cale looked at her, the weight of the world pressing down on them both. He knew what he had to do, not as a king, not as a warrior, but as a man who had found his mate in the most unlikely of ways. "Cerys," he said, voice low and earnest, "I have no pride left that matters more than this. Stay with me, not because you must, but because you choose to. Be mine, if you will. Be his mother, and mine too." Cerys's heart trembled. She had come to care for him slowly, cautiously, and now his words laid everything bare. His vulnerability, his need, and his respect for her choice were undeniable. She saw in his eyes the same truth she had felt growing within herself. He was hers, not by conquest, but by trust and devotion. For a long moment, silence hung in the grove. Then Cerys stepped forward, her hand brushing his. "I choose," she whispered. "I will stay. I will protect him, and I will be with you. Not because you beg, but because I want to." The figure in the shadows recoiled, and a soft wind rippled through the grove. The curse, ancient and relentless, had been faced with something it could not conquer: choice, love, and unity. Its dark presence slowly faded, leaving only the quiet strength of Cale and Cerys standing together. Cale pulled her close, their foreheads touching. The child slept peacefully between them, safe and warm. For the first time, Cale allowed himself to exhale fully. Not as a king, not as a conqueror, but as a man who had found redemption through love. "You have changed me," he said quietly. "I thought strength was only in war, but I see now. It is in love and trust and in courage to be vulnerable." Cerys smiled faintly, resting her head against his chest. "And you have changed me," she said. "I thought I could never belong anywhere but here with you. I am whole." The forest around them seemed to breathe with relief, the sun breaking through the clouds and casting light over the grove. The kingdom, the air, and the bond between them felt stronger, built not on fear or blood alone, but on choice and devotion. Cale knew the road ahead would not be easy. Enemies would come, the shadow of the curse could return, and the kingdom would demand his attention. But for now he had Cerys, he had the child, and he had the first true peace he had ever known. Together they walked back toward the edge of the forest, a united front against the world. Cale carried his sword, Cerys carried her magic, and both carried a bond stronger than any army or spell could break. And as they reached the threshold of the forest, Cale whispered to Cerys, "No matter what comes, we face it as one. You, me, and our child. Always." Cerys smiled, her eyes shining with a mix of love and determination. "Always," she echoed. The wind shifted gently, carrying with it a promise. The storm had passed, but a new era was beginning. One forged in trust, bound by choice, and tempered by the power of love. And in that moment, the Alpha King was no longer alone, and the healer had found her place beside him, as mate, protector, and partner in life's uncertain dance. The air stirred, opening his eyes to the light of a new day. Cale and Cerys looked at him, hearts full, knowing that together, they could face whatever the world would throw at them. The kingdom of Dravenmore had survived its darkest hour, and in its heart, a new legend was being born, the tale of a broken king, a healer of the forest, and the bond that could conquer curses, fear, and time itself.